All right, welcome everyone. We're starting a little bit late tonight, but I wanted to make sure I had everything for tonight's Paranormal Playground, Amityville, and Cold Spots. This is kind of a special episode. As you can see behind me, it is the old Amityville house. This is how it looked in 1974. If you guys don't know about the story, it's kind of a dark story, but some good ended up coming out of it. I'll give you a brief rundown of this house. This particular house has had many movies made about it. I'm sure you recognize the windows, the half moon windows. I don't want to give away the address of this house. If you try to find this house on Google Maps, it'll be blurred out. They really doesn't want you knowing where this house is. So I will say this, it's in New York. The address is actually changed because in 1974, 6 people were murdered in this home. And movie and movies after the original movie really picks up where the new family moves into the house after the murders. And that family was the Lutz family. And they were the ones that experienced all the paranormal phenomenon. Thanks for showing up. This episode's going to be jam-packed. If you're watching live, go ahead and let me know. Looks like we got Danielle. She asks, was this based on a true story? Yes. The movie basically picks up right after the original murders. Um, Basically, what happened with the murders: November 13th, 1974, at 3:15 in the morning, one of the sons, 7 people lived in the house, brothers, sisters, mom, and dad. One of the sons took a high-powered rifle and basically systematically went room to room, shooting everyone in his family as they laid in bed. And, to be honest with you, I mean, it's kind of a scary downer of a story. But me personally, I'm not really about the dark aspect of the paranormal, but it's something that is there and you have to acknowledge it. So excuse me, I'm just sipping on some Monster energy drinks here. So the son was Ronald Jr., the dad was Ronald Sr. Ronald Jr., at 3:15 in the morning, November 13th, 1974, went room to room with a rifle at 3 o'clock in the morning and shot everybody while they were sleeping, his own family. And again, if you're watching this on replay, thanks for watching. Those of you who are here live, thanks for showing up. But Dawn was the older sister. She was shot in bed. Allison was the younger sister. She was also shot in bed. John was the younger brother. He was shot in his bed. Mark was the older. He was shot in his bed. Ronald Sr., the dad, was shot in his bed. And Louise, the mother, was also shot in her bed as they all slept by Ronald Jr. with a rifle. Danielle asks, what was the reasoning behind the son shooting everyone? Well, that's kind of what's been the controversy of why the younger, actually he was the oldest brother, why the older brother did this. And here's what I'll say about that. My belief is that this home, the Amityville home, is on a piece of land that has a real rich history. I think, and this is in New York, Amityville, New York. I think the land itself has a deep, deep history of suffering, of bad things, where they, I mean, the whole East Coast is basically the original 13 colonies. A lot of people were fighting, a lot of people died. I think Indians kept their mad and sick along the river there for a while. Just a ton of suffering and death happened in that area. And I mean, if you look at American history, I mean, we've had a civil war, we've had, you know, Christopher Columbus and the Indians, how we took over land. This is part of that. This particular East Coast area in Amityville, New York, has seen its share of traumatic suffering, just not too great stuff. So what all that does is it leaves behind kind of like, let's say you take a rug, shake it outside, all the dust and the dirt, a rug kind of still floats and lingers in the air. A lot of that psychic energy still is on the land because so much has happened on that land. There's a lot of energy in that area. And to my knowledge, especially where this house is located, a lot of things happened right exactly this plot of land. So then you get into, they made a movie about this house, and I have not seen the movie, the original Amityville Horror. I know Kidder's in it. I haven't seen it, but it did really well. And there was a book by Jay Anson written about this house. So yeah, the land itself has a lot of dark energy attached to it. So now you have this house that was built in, I think it was 1928. This particular house that you can see behind me was built. There was a house there before, but they moved the house, which begs the question is, why did they move the previous house that was there on that plot of land? They moved that house down the street. This one was built. It's a nice colonial big house. Behind this house is an inlet, a river inlet that actually goes out into the ocean. So a lot of these homes on this street have boats. And if you've seen the more recent Amityville movies, you'll see the boathouse in the back. Ryan Reynolds was in one. I think it's the Amityville Horror 2006 or something like that. But the boathouse is in the back, and they kind of show a little bit deeper some of the haunting phenomenon in that film, the 2006 version. But going back to Danielle's question, what was the reason for the sun shooting everyone? So what I just explained is we already got a lot of negative energy on the land. The sun was also into the occult, which most people would probably agree with me. The occult has some negative things attached to it as well. Practiced witchcraft. He read books on the occult. He read books on black magic. And to top that off, he also had a real problem with substance abuse. Alcohol, drugs, LSD, heroin, cocaine, anything really bad as far as drugs and alcohol. He was pretty much deep into that lifestyle. So what happens when you add the land that the house is sitting on, you add an individual who's already talking to maybe negative entities, practicing black magic, inviting negativity, inviting spirits into the home. He's practicing witchcraft. He's practicing black magic under the occult books he was reading. And then on top of that, you have all the drug and alcohol use. So what happens when an individual is abusing substances like drugs and alcohol? What happens is their aura changes changes. And everybody has an aura. Even trees, plants, they all have an aura. Um, there was a lot of studies done about the aura around plants. Um, they would they would take a leaf, like a maple leaf, and I think it's called Kirlian photography, where they show the aura of the leaf, and then they cut the leaf in half, and then they look at the aura again, and the outline of the leaf is still the same as if it was whole. So people have auras, trees, animals, anything made by God has an aura. And when you pour tons of booze and cocaine and LSD and heroin into the mix, that changes your aura. So now instead of a vibrant, maybe yellow and purple and orange aura, you have a gray, dark aura around you. And sometimes the substance abuse and how you lead your life can actually leave kinks in your aura. And honestly, I don't know exactly how that happens, but you can become susceptible to negative forces, negative entities, anything like that. So in the case of Ronald DeFeo, I mean, he had all three going. Living in that house, on that land, substance abuse, his aura was bad. He probably had kinks in it. When he practiced the occult, negative things got in and basically corrupted his aura, his thinking, took over in my sense, in the way I feel. I think he was actually taken over by a really dark force that eventually control of him. So with all that being said, he was under the influence, without a doubt, under the influence of some kind of demonic entity or force. He went room to room. He shot everybody at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now here is where it gets really strange. The shot of a rifle is loud. And some of his family members he shot more than once. So these homes on the street, you could throw a baseball next door and it would go through the window. That's how close they are on the street. Nobody heard any gunshots at 3 o'clock in the morning. Also, the other thing, every family member was found face down in their bed. Now you ask yourself, well, why were they all face down in their pillow? Like they were sleeping on their stomachs. And the police did a full report on the family, and they took toxicology reports, and none of the family members had any sedatives, no alcohol, no drugs, nothing in their system. There was no drugs or alcohol in any of the family members' system, so they were not sedated. So what I'll show you right now is, you can see the house behind me. I'm going to show you another picture. So this picture is actually going to be of the police crime scene basically in 1974. So you'll be able to look and see just how massive this story was, and how it basically just rippled throughout the entire community and eventually the world, because really there's not too many people that don't know about the Amityville horror. If you ask anybody what is the Amityville horror, they pretty much know. What you see behind me here, look at the old cars right here. 70s, 1974. This is the front door to the house. You can go down either side, and as you can see, the doors open and the police and probably a medical examiner is taking bodies out of the house. And I will show you one more picture here just so you can get an idea of what took place here. And apparently these pictures were taken at 6 o'clock the following day, because Ronald ran into one of his favorite bars and said, "My family's been killed." Here you can see the front again. I know these pictures are kind of graphic, but you have to get the gravity of this situation. And here they're taking out more bodies, 6 people. So that is pretty much what went on. Now, what I will say is the majority of the movies were made after these murders. Nobody really knows what what happened before the movies. So I'm trying to show you one other picture here. Just hang on a second, if it's going to let me. I don't know if it's going to let me do it that way. I'll show you a picture of what it looks like today. And you've seen what it looks like in 1974. This is what the home looks like today. And you'll be able to see that what they did is they took out the windows. The people that bought the home, they took the windows out because those windows were so iconic. People were treating the home like it was a almost like a spectacle or an amusement park. So this behind me is the new home. This is what it looks like today. And it's pretty similar. You still have this front entryway here with all the windows. But up here, these two windows have changed because the new owners, and this was done many, many years ago. These windows were changed in the 90s. The owners did not want any more attention than they were getting. People were walking on their property. Because not only did the murders happen, but some people don't even know about the murders that happened in the house. All they hear about is the hauntings, the subsequent hauntings after the murders. And behind me here, or behind the home, you can see, if I can point over that direction, is the boathouse in the back, which they depict in a lot of the movies. So that's what it looks like today. Another question from Danielle. In the movie, it was the father that shot the family, not the son. I didn't know that. Why wouldn't they just do the movie of what really happened? That's a really good question. I think possibly is because having the son, a 20-year-old, do it, I think it was so out of the ordinary. They probably said, look, we better just have the dad do it. Because it's so strange having the son, who was a brother, an older brother to two other siblings and two other sisters as well. And from what I can gather, he actually loved his family. He had a problem with his dad. I think his dad also had a problem with alcohol, and he was abusive verbally and physically to the family, but he loved his mother. He loved his siblings. Why would he kill everybody and not just the father? Because he said before he loved his family. So that's where you get into, he was probably under some kind of oppression. So before we get into the haunting, I had the pleasure of going down to see the home in person. The house itself is very guarded. There's signs up, no trespassing. You cannot walk on the property. You'll be arrested. You do not want to go on this property. But it happened to be that I was in New York for a convention, and I went down to the home on Halloween night. So there's trick-or-treaters. So this home kind of had a crowd around it. And I have a little video that I can show you of that. It's about 5 minutes long. I'll play it for you. I ended up actually having the pleasure to speak with the current owners. I don't want to say who they were or their names, but I did walk down the driveway, and I did go right in front of this door here. And I talked with the new owners, the dad, and I had known who he was, and I'd emailed him. So I got to talking with him in the driveway, and he basically told me, this is what he said to me. I said, yes, I wanted to ask you some questions, and it wasn't really just all about the house. I kind of wanted to ask him some questions about him, because I found it interesting why he bought the house and a little bit of background. But he basically told me in so many words, I've had media local news, big media come to me and ask for interviews, and we don't talk about the house. And he basically left it at that and kind of looked down at the ground and said, we have media asking us all the time. I don't give interviews and I don't talk about the house. That's what he told me. So he's actually a really nice guy. And I got to talking with him a little bit. And I eventually called my wife down the driveway. She came down and said, "Oh, there's a cat." And the funny thing is you do some research, even back when the murders happened, after the murders, they said there was always a cat next door, and this ghost pig in the window, this Jody, the pig, ghost pig, was just the cat next door. So the next door neighbor had a cat, my wife saw it, and the new owner said, "Oh, that's just the next door neighbor cat." So I found that kind of amazing that there was still another cat next door when this home was known for the cats next door way back in 1974. So she came down and we talked to the family a little bit longer. We were in the driveway, and mind you, little kids would come up. They had a little table set up. Little kids would, adults weren't walking down the driveway trying to talk to the owners about the home. I don't know how I got up the gumption to walk down there and talk to them, but I did. But there was quite a crowd outside of the home standing there on the sidewalk. And I decided to go down there and discuss with the owners just a little bit. I didn't want to push the house issue too much because, like I said earlier, he flat out told me we don't talk about the house. And I had to respect that. And I think I got along with them. My wife got along with them. And actually, they were conveying a story about earlier in the night, somebody was in their backyard creeping around in the dark, just some random person they had to chase out of their backyard. So I almost felt bad for the family to have to deal with people trespassing on your property like that, especially Halloween. So we ended up talking for about 15 minutes and I left. And I will show you a little bit of the video of what the house looks like. And this was last year. So this is fairly recent. This is last Halloween. And I have another question here. Danielle asked, did the new owners ever claim to have spirits in the house? Well, yeah, they weren't talk about that with me. He was very kind of sullen, or I don't know, sullen about the whole thing. He didn't want to talk about it. But at the beginning of this video here, great questions, Daniel. You'll see me talking with Tony Spera, who is the son-in-law of Ed and Lorraine Warren. You'll see Judy Warren in this clip, and it's just a small little clip. And I included it because I'm talking to Tony about this home, and you might find it interesting. So let's roll it.
Concept is nothing but really, really nice. Just concept.
We're going to try the Amityville. What do you think? Yay or nay?
Hard to see much. The house has changed.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Still on
change the
Ocean.
windows and stuff?
Well, it used to be 112. They changed it to 118.
Yeah.
Guys.
I'm just going to stand out front. All right, guys, there you go. That was last Halloween. As you can see that there was a huge dragon out front. Apparently, they like to do it up for Halloween. It was pretty cool, actually. I hope you liked the video. I know it's shaky, but I had gotten a new GoPro, and when you're trying not to bring tripods and stuff out to the Amityville house and stick out like a sore thumb, at times it was a little shaky. So, but you did get to see what the house looks like, and that is the real home with the windows changed. So now I want to talk a little bit about the actual haunting. And a picture of a photograph that was taken inside the home after the family that moved in after the murders fled. And that's the Lutz family. So this was during the investigation. This photo was taken with an infrared camera. And if you can see right there that there is a little boy peeking out of one of the doorways where one of the children were murdered. I think it was the boy's bedroom where the two boys were actually murdered by Ronald Jr. And this photograph here is in black and white because it's taken, like I said, with an infrared camera. It was set up in the hallway. Ed and Lorraine and a lot of renowned parapsychologists, news crew, basically the big wigs, the big names were in this home after the family fled because of a haunting, which had everything, poltergeist activity, you name it, monsters of the night, anything scary happened in this house. And so this camera was on a time delay. It would snap pictures every 30 seconds or so. Now, this little boy, you can see his glowing eyes, you can see his shirt, you can see his hair, and it almost looks like one of the younger boys who was murdered in that room. But to my knowledge, Ed Warren is basically stating that this photograph is the entity that was there showing itself as a little boy. But that is not a little boy. That is a demonic, dangerous entity portraying itself as a little boy. Ed Warren stated that this is one of the worst houses he's ever been in. In some of my other videos, I talk about it. He went into the basement. He was basically attacked He said he felt like a hot towel was put on his face. He could barely breathe. He went into what's called religious resistance, where he envisioned himself in a white light and basically prayed to God for this entity that was attacking him to go back to where it came from, and it lifted off him. So this home is basically, now that's not to say it's like a, but at the time it was infested with demonic entities. And this picture is a demonic entity portraying itself as a little boy. Now I'll show you another picture here. And this picture I'm going to show you, I have two pictures, so I'll show you this picture, because this is basically who the people were that moved in after the murders happened. And they, like I said, they fled after 28 days. They left all their possessions. They left everything, clothes, motorcycles. This is Kathy Lutz and Mr. Lutz, and the top of his head is cut off here because I didn't test this picture out, but they fled after 28 days. They had some children also, and the children, one of the children actually came out and did a documentary about his experiences in the house. And that documentary is called My Amityville. And you can find that. I think it came out in 2000, God, I want to say 2014 maybe. But he talked about all the bad things that happened paranormal wise. And this picture here, you can see, I mean, this is police tape, but it's more like a string back. Maybe they used that back then, them blocking off the home from people walking on it, walking onto the property. And then now I'll check in with the chat. Dale has another question. So that was a ghost from the murder. Honestly, I think it was a demonic entity portraying itself as probably one of the murdered boys. Now, I will say this, with infrared, I use it all the time. And really, it's the only thing that it's my only go-to. Because for some reason, infrared cameras and video recording equipment catches things that the naked eye doesn't. A little background about me. I started a small nonprofit called Sweeps. And here's my card. I don't know if you can see it. It's Southern Wisconsin City Education and Paranormal Services. And what I do is I basically go into areas where there's spiritual activity, graveyards, things of that nature. And when I film, I catch energy, orbs. Some people call them orbs. You know, like I said, orbs is kind of a generic term, but for real. If you look on my Facebook page, there is some video in the graveyard where I used some infrared video footage of these orbs floating around in the graveyard. And I've been doing this long enough to know what bugs look like, what bugs look like on film. I've been doing it long enough to understand what water molecule like floating in front of a lens, what dust looks like, even light particles bouncing off of like certain cameras, full spectrum cameras. I know what I'm looking at, and infrared is basically all I use. I don't really do ghost boxes or anything like that. Maybe that's something I'll get into, but when I go into an area that's possibly haunted, the only thing I have with me are some blessed metals, sacramentals, rosary, holy water, infrared equipment, cameras, and video recorders. Because it's the only thing that really can definitively tell you if there's something supernatural there. It's just all I use. So in that other picture I showed you, you saw the boy in the room was with infrared, and that camera picked up something that if you would have been standing there, you would have not seen that boy, but that camera picked it up. And the camera is an impartial witness. So what a camera sees, it captures. There's no bias with the camera, especially an infrared camera. A little more background. I also do help people who feel like they might have an issue with a haunting or something negative in their home. I give people advice on what I think they should do, what route they should take. Sometimes I do home blessings with holy water and certain prayers and things like that. Sometimes I just have to tell people, look, this is something that's not supernatural. I never rule anything out. I always listen to everybody. And sometimes just because one thing's not supernatural, that doesn't mean something else isn't with the same case. So we document, we research anything paranormal, and then we also help people. And that's why it sweeps as paranormal services, because we do offer those services. We can pretty much detect if something's there, and then from there, I mean, we have a lot of different ways we can go about things, getting things out of the house, getting attachments off of people. There's a lot of different ways to do that. So what I'll do now is just briefly talk about some of the haunting phenomenon that went on in the home after the murders. And if you're wondering, Ronald Jr. was given 6 basically life sentences, 25 to life. He was given 6 25 to life sentences. And he actually just recently passed away in March of last year, 2021. So he is no longer alive, but he ended up doing a lot of time from 1974 to 2021. And this is, I'm going to have to come up with some better pictures, but this you can't see his eyes here, but this is him. This is one of his mug shots. Right here, that's Ronald DeFeo Jr. And I'll show you another picture here. This is kind of the scene of all the police and the media attention that this home got surrounding the murders in this picture here. As you can see, I mean, they got the police tape, and neighbors are walking around. It just got a ton of attention. So the Lutzes had a lot of bad stuff happen. They had ceramic lions attack. George Lutz had a ceramic lion attack his leg that drew blood. And you might be asking, how does that happen? Well, sometimes these entities can solidify themselves, solidify the air around an individual. They can hurt you. They can punch you. They scratch you. I don't know if you've heard people talk about being scratched. This picture I'll show you here is actually, you know what I'll do? I'll just put, because we're talking about the haunting. There were many other infrared photos taken. The face of Padre Pio appeared in the I don't know if you call it the dining area, but it's the front foyer of the home. He appeared in one of the moose's antlers that was on the wall. But this here is a close-up of the infrared shot. And there's no mistaking it. I mean, that is uncanny. And this was on a time-sensitive camera. So the banister, you can see there, slime would appear on the banister, and that's basically ectoplasm. If you've seen the movie Ghostbusters, a lot of the stuff in that movie, which I didn't even realize at the time is real, like slime and things like that. George would actually collect the slime that he found on the doorknobs and the banister and throw it into the river out back, because he thought maybe his kids were smearing jello or somebody got into the house and was playing a prank. But he would collect this slime and basically throw it into the river behind the house. So that's actually energy that is becoming physical. It's into a physical presence, which is slime. And then other things would happen. They would hear marching bands downstairs at 3 o'clock in the morning, like music. They would go downstairs, and the rugs and all the furniture would be pushed to the wall, like people were actually marching there. They would levitate in their beds. Levitation is actually pretty common in some of these major hauntings. It's definitely not good. It's demonic. It's dangerous, and it's a show of power. Regular hauntings and stuff, you're not going to get levitation. Levitation and things like that, that's demonic, and you can tell because the demonic have powers that like a repeat haunting won't, or a soul that hasn't crossed over yet might be wandering around his house trying to get your attention. Demonic entities will wreak havoc in the home. And that's how you kind of know what you have when it comes to haunting and poltergeist activity like that. So we're getting close towards the end here. I'll put up one other picture and wrap this episode up. Talking a little bit about cold spots and temperature. I'll just touch on a little bit of my research, and I'll put this book in the background while I wrap up here for you guys. Again, everybody who came and watched live, thank you for showing up. Your questions were great tonight. Anybody who's watching this on replay, put some comments below. Like and subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Facebook, my YouTube. It's all under Cameron Schwegler. It's just under my name. Follow me so you can get notifications and like and subscribe, because we're going to be doing a lot of very, very interesting educational shows. Paranormal playground shows we'll be doing. I'm going to try to get to do them once a week. Behind me, you can see here, this is the Jay Anson novel book. It's pretty close up here, but you can see the flies. They had a problem with flies in the hundreds, and they would kill them all, and then they'll just come right back. That's the kind of phenomenon that would happen in this house. And so now, just to wrap up this episode, I'm going to talk about cold spots for about 5 minutes. And Danielle says, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Danielle, for showing up. We appreciate you being here with us. And anybody else that's watching this, like I said before, thank you for taking the time to listen and watch. Cold spots go hand in hand with psychic energy. We as people throw off psychic energy into the air constantly. Now, reverting back to what I do, I go into graveyards, and we're going to be doing some real crazy stuff this year. We're going into abandoned hospitals, sanitariums, old graveyards. I have a lot of surprises for you guys. But temperature matters. When I go into a graveyard and it's below a certain temperature, these entities and spirits will not show themselves on infrared. I tested this theory out. The last time I went to a graveyard, I went when it was 10 degrees. I was about 25 degrees. I went when it was 42 degrees and nothing. But if I go to a haunted location and it's above, let's say, 75 degrees, I'll probably actually come up with a precise number in the next following months. But anything above 70 degrees outside, the trees need to have leaves on them because the trees produce energy. The foliage, the bushes, the grass, the heat in the air, these spirits use all of that for energy. And it's a heat source and it's energy, and they use that to show themselves. So when you see in some of my videos, these balls will kind of stop, look at me, and then float away. They're manifesting themselves for me, basically. They're probably taking my energy as well, because sometimes after I go out on these excursions, I'm like down, tired, can't get off the couch for 2 days because I feel like some of these spirits are taking my life force, my energy, and using that to manifest themselves. So they're using my energy, the heat in the air, the bushes, the trees, all that. They're using all that energy, and they're balls of light. And it is light, because when I look at these things, I mean, it's blinding light, white light. Each one of these entities or spirits are different. They each have their own personality. When I go back to certain graveyards, I recognize different orbs, because they'll start to follow me around. And honestly, I don't know if they know I'm a human walking around, but they know I'm there because I'm carrying some kind of life force. In their one possibility, they could be walking around in their old home that they grew up in and just don't realize they're actually floating next to their bodies in a graveyard, but they haven't crossed over. Or the other thing, which I'm trying to figure out, is if some of these orbs may be inhuman. And as we do more of these these shows, we'll talk more about what's human and inhuman. So temperature plays a big role in spirits showing themselves. And when you get a full apparition, that spirit is using a ton of energy. We see it as little balls of light and stuff in graveyards. They're taking just enough to show themselves, but they can turn into full apparitions. And Danielle commented here, I went to a haunted asylum years ago. It was really creepy. Med bottles all over the floor and old paperwork from patients from the 1970s. Yeah, that does sound creepy. I have yet to go to a haunted asylum. I do mostly graveyards right now, but we will be doing some either live video feeds from some asylums. But that sounds really interesting. I'm sure those places have a lot of history, which we were talking about earlier, and it's just thick. The energy in the air is thick. It's like I said, it's psychic energy. And sometimes when something bad happens or a lot of suffering happens, like in asylums, the people throw off this psychic energy, and sometimes it stays. It doesn't just go away. Or if a murder happens or something, it's like an explosion. It releases such negative psychic energy. Sometimes it can be a repeat haunting loop. Sometimes it can just leave spirits near that cause hauntings where something bad happened. But usually with hauntergeist, something triggered it, or a lot of the times one of the children are entering puberty and their emotions are through the roof and they're throwing off tons of psychic energy. But that's a whole nother show. So to wrap it up again, when you're in a haunted house and you hear people say, I just got this cold feeling, that's called psychic cold. Whatever's there is sucking all the heat out of the room. In order to make something happen, maybe make a can float in the air past you, they're using energy to do that. Like Ed Warren would say, things smashing, breaking, starting on fire. I have yet to see some of that craziness. I have seen things move on their own. I'll devote a whole show to phenomenon that I've witnessed and been a part of. But yes, temperature matters. People feel cold spots. They go into a room and they say, oh my gosh, it's just bitter cold. When in the hallway it's 75, 68 degrees, whatever it is. You go into a certain bedroom and it feels like it's below zero. That's because all that psychic energy is being pulled out of the air. So that's psychic cold, psychic energy. And in another episode, we'll get into the psychic hours of the night. And the nighttime is when all that psychic energy starts to build because of the darkness. And the psychic hours are from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. And those are peak times for supernatural phenomenon to occur, anything paranormal. So for Cameron, signing off. Thank you all for coming in, and thank you, Danielle, and everybody else for leaving your comments, and everybody watching this. I hope it was entertaining. We're going to have a lot more things to talk about, and I would love to hear your stories and your thoughts on some of the things we talk about. So have a good weekend.